back to Who Reviews the Reviewers. It's round 7. It is the semifinal round, guys. It's very exciting. We've got 3 contestants left, and we're about to jump into our deliberations for the co-op review challenge. Before we get there, let me go ahead and introduce my wonderful co-host. It's Lance Fusion.
I'm officially a tap dancer now.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Like, so when you say officially a tap dancer, did you get like some sort of certificate? Are there like colored belts for that?
No, I just put metal to floor, and I'd say that officially makes it happen.
Oh, okay, cool. And it's superhero enthusiast.
Hey there. I don't have anything clever to say.
Oh, okay. You're not officially anything new.
No, still the same.
Okay, all right. And it's Aaron Dyson.
I saw Inside Out for the 4th time. It's still amazing. Best movie of the year.
You've only seen it 4 times? I'm somewhat surprised by that.
And Sadness is at the helm tonight.
And the real Manos.
Hi, folks. I have not seen Inside Out.
Oh.
You know, Manos, I'm to a place now where I'm trying to save you for last because no one likes to follow you, and then you didn't do anything that cracked us all up.
Yeah.
It's kind of you did that on purpose, didn't you? You were like, well, if I'd gone first, it would have been like, bam!
Yeah.
But I was in, so whatever. I didn't see a movie. Pfft, I don't tap dance either.
Yeah.
And whatever Alex is.
I hear that a lot.
Well, guys, thanks as always for being here. We are once again down to 3, and wow, man, we've been at this all year long, and it's really exciting. And I know it's going to be really bittersweet getting to the end of our competition. Last time we had to say goodbye to Mr. Cool 210 to Ben. I have heard from Ben, and he was really gracious about it, but he was like, "Oh man, that sucks." But Ben was great. He made it to the final 4. Congratulations to him for all of for everything he accomplished in the competition, and we look forward to seeing what happens with him moving forward on his channel. Almost said on his challenge, because all he'll do from now on is Who Reviews the Reviewers challenges. That's, we'll go into another season and he'll be like, whatever, I'm gonna pretend like I'm still on the show. So we just saw last week a live show from our from our 3 final contestants. We've got Connor Nielsen, Mr. Goodplot, and that Mad Kid, and we asked them this time. This is a challenge that I brought back, that I've resurrected from the first season. We haven't done it in a long time. Where with the 3 remaining contestants had to all pick the same thing and then review it together, because co-op reviewing is a thing that a lot of us find ourselves doing a lot, and I thought it would be interesting to force them to go off the cuff and to talk together and to have to collaborate, even though they are still competitors, and one of them is going to get voted off tonight. And I'll just say that, no special gimmicks tonight. One person is getting voted off by the end. And so we asked them to talk for half an hour, and the thing they picked was the documentary on showrunners, the showrunners documentary about people who run TV shows like Joss Whedon and Damon Lindelof, guys like that. And that's a documentary that's available right now on Netflix. If you haven't seen that and you want to go look at that before you see this, obviously it's there on Netflix, so you can go do that. And I thought it was really funny, by the way, on the live show when they said that, and then Mr. Goodplot was like, "But if you're watching this live, then we'll probably be done by the time you're finished." That was absolutely hilarious. Well, we're not going to sit through it again. We've all watched it, and we're going to go ahead and just jump right into talking about it. So this is going to be a little bit different than normal, because we're not talking about 3 different videos. We're talking about just one video. So the way I want to approach this is to discuss each individual's performance in this challenge. So we're going to start with Connor Nielsen, because this was on his channel. And you guys feel free when we get to you opening up to just talk a little bit more broadly, if you want to, just for a second, about the video at large and the approach that as a team they chose. But then what I want to do is talk about each individually the way we usually do when they're doing separate videos, because I want to break it down like that, because we do have to choose one to drop at the end. I want to start today with superhero enthusiast, And Enthusiast, just give me a little bit of what you thought about the approach they took, and then talk a little bit about how you think Connor specifically worked with his teammates and what he brought to the table.
I will say in general, I thought they all kind of. I mean, this is so tough this round because they were all sort of more or less equal in my view. I thought Connor was really interesting because he was sort of the one with the dissenting opinion this time. And
yeah.
I thought he was able to make his points quite well and sort of hear what they were saying. Because there was one point, I think it was about halfway through, where he's like, okay, I sort of see what you're saying. Maybe I need to rewatch it to see if I agree with you. But there was sort of a decent rapport there, definitely with the other guys. I did like that he stuck to his guns, though, at the end. Like, he gave it a 4 out of 10, and the others gave it a much higher score. So it was definitely a case of he did hold his ground. So yeah, I thought he did quite well, and it's sort of I guess he was kind of the master of ceremonies here. Doing stuff like this, you are going to run into technical difficulties, and even at the very beginning they kind of did. It was a little bit of a rough start, but it all kind of came together, and I think he directed it reasonably well.
Okay. Before we hear from the rest of us about Connor, let me also pose this question just to the whole floor, and that is, what did you guys think of the choice to go with a live show, and do you think that hurt these guys at all? Just in their performance, knowing that there might be people watching live. And did any of you guys watch it live? I did. I saw it while they did it.
I watched the first half live, and then I had to shut out, so I ended up watching the second half recorded.
Okay, cool. Aaron, what did you think about that choice?
I didn't like it. I would have much rather have seen them put something together to produce something with a little more professionalism and a little more kind of polish to it, especially at this stage, at this round. I think overall that choice comes with a lot of limitations, and I think those limitations really showed. If I look at this as like an overall piece, an overall review of this documentary, if I'm surfing, the internet and looking, for people talking about this, I didn't think it was that great overall, and which is amazing because the three of them are great. They're, they're really well spoken, well thought out, but the piece itself is, it didn't work for me. So, I had trouble with it.
Okay, now choosing to go, with Google Hangout versus anything else. I mean, like, what would you have, instead of doing that, like what would you have suggested that they do for more polish? Because to be fair, I did ask them to go off the cuff. I did ask them to have a conversation. Kind of more like a radio show or whatever. What's that, Aaron?
Did you ask them not to edit that conversation at all?
I didn't. No, I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't say that. But I asked them not to script anything.
Still edit it down and make it flow a little better, give it a little more structure. I found the overall structure lacking in this. It just really bounced around a lot, and so I wasn't. My brain wants to know. Okay, what are we talking about now? What are we talking about now? Let's first talk about this, and then let's talk. So again, that's a personal thing that I have. So
no, that's fair. And I mean, I might be partially to blame for that, Aaron. I'd have to go back and look at exactly what I don't have it in front of me, exactly what the criteria was that I gave them, because I can't remember if I said have a half-hour conversation or make a half-hour review. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
sure.
they might just be, and in my mind, when I will say this, just to their credit, in my mind when I was putting this together, I did expect in Uncut, kind of more radio show type style thing.
Well, let me be clear as well. It doesn't dock any one of them any more than the others. You ask a specific question about the overall.
Yes.
And I think as an overall video, it suffers from the limitations of the way it was done, and whether that's beyond their choice or was their choice or whatever.
Okay.
I think that's kind of a moot point. I just
okay, sure.
Video does suffer a little for it.
Well, then let me ask you this too, Aaron. Sorry, before we jump to everybody else, and that is, is there anything that they could have done, even being uncut, to be a little bit more streamlined and more organized?
I think so. I think certainly they could have had. I mean, maybe they did. I would have wanted them to have an outline they were working off of that had kind of segments of the half hour, like for the first 10 minutes, we're going to talk about the technical aspects of this, documentary. Was it well shot? Was it, these kind of things. For the second 10 minutes, let's talk about the content. Was it good? You know what I mean? So to have those kind of, to segment it out so that they knew where they were going and they had a structure to it that an audience could follow along and really get a sense for this piece. It sounded like a fascinating documentary in a subject, but it really felt more like three guys just, chatting about this thing they saw rather than a structured review.
Can I sort of jump in here too and answer that question?
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if, it's just an issue of them, not knowing each other super well and just being like, I think this format would have worked better if they had a better rapport with one another. It's not terrible or anything, and they get along and it's fine, but I think where they do disagree, if they knew each other a little bit better, they would be able to perhaps understand where the other person's coming from a little bit better and be able to push when necessary. And so part of me wonders if it might have just helped to do one or two dry runs of this before they did the live show. And, I don't know whether or not they did, but I just sort of, from watching it, get the sense that they didn't.
I suspect they didn't as well. I want to real fast. I want to put forward this amusing anecdote. Alex made me think of this. The first time I ever did a chat with Browncoat Eric, it was before hardly anybody knew us, and I was really nervous about it. He had done a video about us, and he had a lot to do with a lot of our first subscribers and getting us, getting the ball rolling for us. And if you go back to that video, it's still up. You hear the first words Eric and I ever spoke to each other. We got online and we just immediately started making the review, and it was really, really, really awkward. And you can feel as it goes along, us getting to know each other and getting to get a sense of our tics and liking each other more. And by the end of it, it was a lot looser. And I had exactly the same experience watching this. If not a dry run, Alex, I at least would have, and I didn't even think to suggest this to them before, but I might have given them the advice of just hang out for an hour, just shoot the for a while and then get into it, because you're right. They build a rapport as it goes along. Did you guys have what I had? I found it much more. I found the last 10 minutes a lot more watchable than the first 20.
Sure. No,
yeah.
They just started to really kind of coalesce by the end, and I was like, oh goodness, if only they hadn't just like kind of had a beer together, as it were, before it started.
For sure, especially given, and this is something, I mean, we'll talk about when we get to good plot, is like I was sort of unsure whether or not he was supposed to be in character, and I just, even when you announced the challenge, I was kind of thinking in my head like, okay, he's definitely a reviewer who uses a very different style from the other two. How is that going to fit?
Yeah. The only thing that made me wonder about that was just the fact that somebody at one point calls him Steve, but I think that's because when you're on a Google Hangout, you're seeing people's names in front of them. But I thought he was in character the whole time and was actually sort of impressed with it.
Yeah.
Personally. Okay, does anybody else want to weigh in on the format before we get back to it? Go ahead, Lance.
I don't know. To a certain extent, I agree with Aaron in terms that that's not my particular favorite format of choice, and for the reasons he mentioned. But I will say I didn't expect anything different from this. I came into it assuming it was going to be an unedited, off-the-cuff kind of thing, just because I was in the same challenge before. But I do kind of see it as that kind of being part of the challenge, is coming in and talking, seeing who comes out, being able to carry that kind of skill. And to a certain extent, I'd see editing as a little bit of kind of a cheat for that kind of purpose.
It would depend too who edited it, because that would affect, I think, the end product, and it's maybe more fair to not have it edited.
If you were one of the other contestants, would you not kind of go to bed going, no, hang on, wait a minute?
He could have a really good point.
It's final
Yeah.
touch.
Yeah, it's similar to when people do a football pool. It's like the guy who's in charge of all the games and has the sheets, and it's like, and he suddenly wins. It's like, yeah, he looks pretty good. You'd want to be careful about like who's in charge of editing it. I think doing a live show kind of put everybody forcefully on equal footing. they have to go on with who they are, and there's no way of Logan froze. There's no way of any kind of like worry about editing anybody down or up for the conversation. Everybody's completely equal in this case, which is what I liked about the format choice. I mean, Logan and I, do this every week on, Primetime Crisis Live, and of course, we've been friends for years and we've been chatting for years, so our rapport is, I think, pretty good. The first time he and I spoke was right on Eric's Bat Chat. It's the first time he and I had any kind of interaction. I know Eric told me, "Hey, I'm doing this thing with these guys, and one of them's Logan from the Geekvolution. You want to be on it?" It's like, yeah, okay. I don't know who these guys are, but but I don't know. I felt when I listened to that Bat Chat, I felt like you and I thought we hit it off fairly quickly. I thought. And you're right.
Yeah.
The second half definitely is a lot more watchable.
It's easier in something more laid back than that, I think, man. I mean, imagine, if you will, and I thought this was somewhat of a strange choice. They asked me if they could do it as a live show. I was like, sure. But it did strike me as something of an odd choice to Aaron's point and to Aaron's credit, because imagine, put yourself in their shoes. Imagine that not only do you know you're going to be scrutinized by the judges, and not only can you not predict what the other two are going to say, and you have to potentially argue with and rebut them. You have to make sure that you don't take over. You have to make sure that you're playing as a team, but that you do a good enough job that you might be able to etch one of them out by the end. But also imagine that for probably the first time in any of these guys' YouTube career, there might be people watching while they're doing it. Like, just put all that together, and I saw a lot of nerves. And I saw nerves that I don't think I would have seen had they done it just as a Skype call.
I didn't find it that odd, honestly. I mean, if they're already locked down to the idea of doing this as an unedited off the cuff conversation, which they probably were. Especially since it's not a live in front of you, it's not an audience you have to necessarily see. It really doesn't seem like it's that big of a jump, and it really just seemed to be, I would guess, would be more of just a risk to take for the contest. I mean, we're obviously talking about this now, so it might have done exactly what they wanted to, and just drummed up some like, wow, they did it as a live show. Whether or not that worked. It's up to you guys to decide, but I think it was probably at least a good publicity stunt.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair. Certainly, they didn't have a whole lot of people watching. It was just a couple of the judges, but I mean, like, some of them might not have known if there was an audience or whatever. There was some confusion at the beginning as to whether or not they had even started going live. I think a couple of them were kind of unprepared. That we're actually on camera now. Okay, better get ready for this. You know what I mean? And I'm just saying that's the kind of thing that, like, you could start over if you weren't doing it. You have a lot of, I know, just speaking from personal experience, that it's more nerve-wracking to go live than it is, for whatever reason, than it is to just be than just record it. I feel a lot more comfortable when I'm not live. That's just me, and I mean, I really enjoy doing those shows, and I've gotten used to it. But, like, I know early on I was always a lot more nervous, just knowing that somebody might be watching you right now versus later. But I mean, I might be putting too much emphasis on that. But I suspected that, especially from Connor, that I saw nerves because of that. But I may be completely off base.
That's fair. I mean, I don't think it really helped either at the beginning with the technical problems. And, I mean, we can't judge them based on that, but I think, yeah, we can judge them based on how they reacted to them.
Well, but when you say technical problems, I mean, like they had issues like, Connor's mic got weird, but they were able to understand him, and I was impressed with everybody for not calling attention to that. They just rolled through it. But, like, what technical problems are you talking about, Alex?
Just a little bit of a lag, especially at the beginning. Where they were just kind of talking over one another.
I wasn't sure if it was lag or if they just. Now that you say that, I guess it was because while I was watching it, I was like, I think they just have not prepared themselves for who's gonna speak when and that kind of thing? Because I've done that before. I mean, I'm Captain Logan. Oh crap! I've not prepared my co-host for the fact that because I mean, like, I'm so used to working with people that I would immediately say their name because I've trained them to do that. I thought it was that situation.
But I think it's probably both.
Yeah, I think it was that too.
But see, that's it for me. And you guys have actually helped me kind of land on this. I don't know that the way they chose to do it, like not formatically, but the venue, like to do Google Hangouts. I don't know that it's that for me anymore. Yeah. I think it really is for me structure. It is obvious to me that they did not structure this in any way, shape, or form. They didn't say, hey, Matt Kidd, you host the first 10 minutes. Mr. Goodplot, you host the second 10 minutes. And Connor, you host the third 10 minutes. And each of us will come with 3 questions that we want to pose to the other people about this thing. I mean, there's so many different ways you can structure something like this. And they just did zero structure. And that, I think, brought the overall level of the conversation down to where it felt more muddy. It felt like it was just kind of, hit or miss. But I'm a structure guy. Like, I love that stuff. I love, programming and planning and those kind of things. So, I think that's what it was lacking for me, was just, that structure. Some sort of
To
structure.
be fair, isn't that kind of what we're doing right now? We have structure, and now we're just kind of, we sort of, we're just sort of discussing things now. I don't have a problem with what I'm saying.
Well, it's like jazz. I mean, like, you have a standard and then you
worth
improvise around the standard.
That's exactly right. Alex is exactly right. And there is a structure here. Cap has laid out the structure. The structure is, right now we're talking about the overall video. Then we're going to go through each of them and talk about them, and then we'll have our vote offs. Like the audience is.
Yeah, I feel we got kind of tangential for a little bit. Just that we sort of gone off on our own kind of tangents. You might call that jazz, but I don't know. I just
now
want
is
that
the time
idea
to
out
tap
there.
dance.
I love that now we're reviewing our review of it. I mean, like, this is what this show is all about. It's absolutely fantastic.
I brought us down a different tangent. See?
No, Lance, I love that you brought that up, because I know for sure that if Aaron was running this show, it would be more structured. I mean, like, I blame myself a little bit for the issues that Aaron has with it, because these guys have probably all, I might be presumptuous when I say this, but I know at least 1 or 2 of these guys have seen my live shows, and they're not always especially structured. But in my defense, Crisis has had to get that way because we cover way too many shows now. Like, we used to have a laundry list of things we covered for every show. Took half an hour. We can't do it anymore. Now the structure of that show is, and now on to Gotham. Like, that's the structure now. But anyway, so Aaron, I mean, like I might have been detrimental to their choices in this and not streamlining it more just because they've seen me do it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find ways to be creative within the the limitations you've been given. That's.
I agree with you. I just don't want to be a hypocrite by criticizing.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. I mean, our own live show was most likely an influence. I mean, if I was doing this challenge, that would probably seem like an obvious influence to me to do it that way.
Sure.
While it's not structured, obviously, and there's some technical.
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, there's some. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I agree with Aaron on the way it looks and how awkward it is, and it's very kind of sloppy. It's even hard to watch it, at least the first half of it. But I think for at least for the challenge, I kind of favor it because it separates the men from the boys. It separates what you can do. You just put yourself out there with no editing, no time. Like, okay, here's me. Here's what I think. Here's how I handle myself in an awkward situation with 2 dudes I don't know. And one of them's a character.
Manos, buddy, when we get to the vote off, these guys are going to remember that you said men from the boys.
That's right.
Let's talk about structure. Sorry, I said one more. I just remember when I was doing this challenge 4.5 years ago. Oh my god. I knew going into it that I wasn't, off the cuff wasn't my strongest. I'd never done a sort of Skype type video like that before. And so beforehand, I actually had done something similar to what Aaron had suggested and sketched out an outline of topics I wanted to make sure I covered so I didn't forget in the midst of conversation of like, oh crap, I forgot to mention this thing. And it came up during the chat itself, and I remember during the deliberations that I was listening to them, I got criticized at one point for mentioning I had an outline because if I recall correctly, said that it sort of detracted from the idea that we were doing this off the cuff and seeing who could, best bring that argument without any kind of cursing. Does an outline take away from the point of this challenge to be an off the cuff, kind of spontaneous chat kind of idea? Because that was the idea. That was the impression I came away with when I competed in it. Is that still sort of on the table? What are your thoughts on that changed over the past half decade?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to have an argument with a version of myself from almost 5 years ago because I don't remember what in the world they said back then. So I'm just going to go with how I feel about it now. No, I think an outline is a really good idea, and I think that if I'm a hypocrite right now, that's fine. People change and they grow. What almost would be neat to see, Lance, would be to see like whose outline wins out, kind of. You know what I mean? Not exactly a battle of wits, but like, look, everybody is so prepared that when somebody brings up a subject that they knew would maybe come up and they put in a place in their notes, you can kind of see their brains working and the gears turning and like, okay, we're on this now, and then they're focused and they're engaged and they're there. And this was of course a whole lot more freeform than that. But yeah, I mean, like, even for stuff that's not all that structured, I take a lot of notes much of the time. So like at the very least, notes. I'm not saying that these guys didn't have any at all, but there were times where I wondered if you could just watch me.
Can I say in their defense, like, there wasn't a point in this where they didn't know what to talk about. They always had a point to bring up, so.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't think they were fishing around too hard.
It's a good point. I think it's a great point, Alex.
But Lance, I would say that I like the idea of maybe coming up with, as Aaron was saying, even like a small skeleton of an outline together. Like you've got your notes and what you think you want to talk about, and you spend the first 10 minutes. And also this would help you get to know each other again. Before you get started on the actual review, saying let's, as Aaron said, let's start with this part of it, and then this part of it. What do we want to tackle in what order? And that wasn't there. The big thing, and let's go ahead and start talking about Connor now. Let's talk about Connor, because again the live show was on his channel. I was kind of expecting, and I guess I'm gonna argue a little bit with I forget, it was Alex who said this earlier, but I was kind of expecting that somebody would sort of like it happened the first time we did this, would kind of emerge as the leader, the moderator. I didn't feel like anybody did.
I mean, I think it was supposed to be Connor, and I think he did kind of manage it. I think he could have done the job better for sure, and I think definitely it was a little bit of a, I don't want to say a war of personalities, but there were a few points where it almost did feel kind of like Matt was taking the lead for sure.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that Matt was afraid of stepping on Connor's toes because he opened it up, and that probably is just because it was on his channel. And keep in mind, of course, that you do a live Google Plus call, whoever's channel it's on is the person that has to press the "we're recording now" button. So we're going live now button. I kind of feel like, Alex, that's the only reason that happened with Connor. Because the more I think about it, if anybody did emerge as the leader, it was Matt. But I still don't feel like all that much because I think that he was just being really considerate, and I think Connor wasn't assertive.
I think that's maybe a fair point.
Aaron, talk a little bit about Connor.
I agree completely with what you said about him not emerging as an MC. I mean, it was there because it was on his channel, but I really felt like, and I'm not sure if I feel like this was overall necessarily a negative or positive thing, but I didn't feel like there was an MC. Like, I felt like it, again, just kind of flowed from person to person, and I do think, like you said, that people did emerge to be able to kind of take that role. Other thoughts about Connor? Connor, to me, and this goes against a little bit of what Alex said, I think, felt the most unsure to me of his overall thought. I felt like he was very easily swayed. And Alex, I think you mentioned he came back to give it a low score, so you kind of call that sticking to his guns. But during the actual proceedings, I felt like he had the hardest time backing up what he had originally thought, and instead would kind of give way to what the others thought. On the positive side, I think Connor had the best looking setup. I think he did the most to make his background and lighting and all that kind of look really well. The other two had kind of very bland setups. May seem like a minor thing, but I was attracted to his screen more than the other two screens, and I think that that says something. Did I have any other specific about Connor? No, that's pretty much it. I thought he was well spoken. I thought he did fine. I did like that he was a dissenting opinion. I wish he had been able to more strongly express why. Because at the end of the day, as I'm watching his dissenting opinion, it seemed to get overpowered by the others. So.
I'm with you. I thought he conceded too much.
Yeah.
He had points that made sense while he was in. I've seen this documentary, and I can see what he was saying in places, but there were spots where it really kind of seemed like, and this is going to sound harsh, and I don't mean it to be. There were parts where it seemed almost like he just wasn't being objective, where he's like, well, I don't like the format they chose, and it seems too loose for me, so I just stopped paying attention. And I don't know if that's really what happened, but there were places where he would take up for his not noticing a thing because he was taken out of the movie, and he'd be like, well, see, if I'm in, I can get this to a point, but at the end of the day, you're reviewing a thing, and you do have to kind of watch it and pay attention to it, even if you don't like it. But I mean, like he'd be like, I just lost interest, and so I didn't pick up on some of these things you guys are saying, and like again, that's not a terrible point, but there were points where I felt like he was almost saying that to try to like take up for that, where he's like, oh man, they've got me in a corner, what do I do? Like that's the impression I got, and I kind of think that he had sometimes a good reason for feeling the way he did.
And
they were more persuasive than him, I guess is the point.
But he's not without moments of the reversal. I think the majority is what we're talking about, kind of giving way. But
yeah.
When he brings up the point about the lower third graphics, that's something that he's able to take to them, and they go, yeah, you're right. That was a little much, a little annoying, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and importantly, when did it happen, Aaron? Last 10 minutes.
Last 10 minutes, yeah. But I don't think that's the majority of his presence in this. But I did want to mention that it's not like he's without being able to stick up for it.
No, he's not, absolutely not. Right. But it does come a little late in the game.
Right.
I just kind of felt like it was almost as if Connor was sort of approaching the film from a very different perspective from the other two, and not just because he had a different opinion on it. And so it was just a case of like the two of them were sort of having a different discussion than he was kind of trying to have, or maybe interested in having. And I think that sort of accounts for part of the disconnect.
I do have a question, and for specifically Aaron, but anybody can answer this. Do you think, getting back to the format, actually, in regards to how Connor was able to perform in it, do you think by doing a live chat hosted by Connor, do you think he was kind of setting himself up to be the MIC, therefore kind of creating a circumstance that he has to live up to?
Yes, to a degree, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's there whether you intend it or not. I mean, it's it's kind of the expected, and so yeah, I think that setup is there.
Originally, you guys don't know this, originally it was supposed to be on Matt's channel, and they had to change it for some reason at the 11th hour. If Matt had hosted it instead of Connor, Connor might have ended up looking better, but I'm not saying that Connor isn't necessarily a natural leader. I just think that he was nervous for this particular challenge, and I think that he was surprised that the other two didn't feel the way he did right away, and so suddenly he's the odd man out. And I mean that is a rough spot to be in too, not just the leader thing, but being the one person in the room. Like it can be a really great thing because it's like, okay, my opinion's unique and different, but you could like look like you're just being negative for the sake of being negative. Something that I wish he hadn't said, and he said it a couple times, was I don't. It was almost like I'm trying to be really, and I appreciate all the respect, but like I'm trying to be really respectful to you guys, and my opinion's in the minority, so I have to constantly kind of set up things by saying I don't mean to be negative, but no, you didn't like it, be negative. You know what I mean? Like, be fair. But if you didn't like it, then say what you have to say. But I sympathize with him because I've caught myself doing that sometimes too, where like you get self-conscious. It's like, oh man, I'm in a room where everybody else disagrees with me. Well, I mean, I don't mean to be a jerk face about the thing you loved, but it sucked. You know what I mean?
And again, that's where these guys having a better rapport would have helped a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you brought up the thing about it originally supposed to be on Matt's channel, because I think you mentioned it to me. And then it ended up being on Connor's, and I didn't know if I just imagined that or what. So I think that might have accounted for perhaps part of his nervousness.
I do think it's important to note, though, that these guys all, I know we're on Connor, but these guys all had a really good respect and fairness to each other. That was a thing that I really appreciated. If somebody stepped on another person's toes, they were real gracious about it. They'd stop and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, what were you saying?" And I loved that. I don't know that it fits in the personality of a supervillain. Just throwing that out there. But he was like the most gracious of them, and he's a supervillain. It's hilarious. But no, that was a thing they all did right, I think. Manos, you haven't talked a lot about Connor yet, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I mean, God, you guys are hitting a lot of the same points. I don't think I knew about the last minute change, which definitely does explain a lot of his performance. And yeah, I think I just wish that I don't know. Here's the thing, like, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing if none of them dominated. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I feel like, I don't know, because I get the feeling that we've done this twice now, and I don't remember anybody really dominating in the first time we did it with Lance.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I do feel like I get the sense that they were all trying to be gracious towards each other, so they wouldn't purposely hurt each other. This isn't like a vindictive reality show. These people are fairly decent competitors. I do wonder if that helped. I wonder if he was like nervous because he was hosting, but I do wonder if he was trying not to dominate, like he was trying to be gracious.
I don't know about that. It seemed to me like he started to get kind of mousy because he was surprised that his opinion was the dissenting one.
It's too bad, because you know what, that could have been a chance to really shine.
Yeah, that's what I think too. I mean, Manos, there's a difference between dominating and being the leader, and I feel like a thing like this, you kind of need those roles. You know what I'm saying? So, like, just because a person is the leader doesn't mean they're going to win. That's a good. Doesn't mean they won't lose. You see what I'm saying? It's just like it seems like maybe draw straws or something. Like it was natural because you mentioned the first time we did this. No, Corellian was very much the guy in charge. If memory, wasn't it, Lance? Wasn't it kind of like that? I can't remember, but somebody that wasn't you was kind of the person that was spearheading things and saying, now let's move on to this time. There was somebody who did that.
Is that true, Lance?
I seem to recall that being the case, but I can't remember which. I can't remember if it was Professor or Connor. I mean, Mr. Crellian. Sorry.
I'm almost positive. Now, it's not important, and it's ancient history now. But I'm just saying that like it worked better that time. I guess that's what we have to compare it to. And once again, let's look at what we're doing right now versus what they do. I'm the moderator. I'm the leader. It doesn't make me the MVP. every time. You see what I'm saying? Like you do kind of need somebody in that role just to help rein things in. And I would have been impressed to see somebody emerge that way if they didn't pick it in the first place. And I just feel like it messed with assertiveness. Is my point. Everybody just kind of unsure about how far they could dip their toes into the water.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can certainly see them being a little bit hesitant to come forward in that way,
Yeah.
with there being a specific edict saying don't be dominant, because while they're two separate things, I think it's easy to go down one road if you're trying to go down the other one, and I think they might have all been hesitant to become too over-assertive and go against specifically what you told them not to do.
Well, that's absolutely fair. But I mean, that's a thing I have to try to balance too. And I will freely admit that it's the hardest thing about my job, is to not forget that I've got co-hosts and just take over. So I mean, that was, that's a thing. I just feel like that's a thing you have to say. Make sure everybody else gets to talk. But what we ended up with was almost the opposite. But not the opposite. It's not like they just sat there and didn't say anything. I think everybody got equal time, and everybody had plenty of interesting things to say. There was just a lack of assertiveness. I'm sorry, what, Aaron?
I just said, but back to Connor.
Yeah, right. So anyway, anything else anybody wanted to say about Connor's performance before we move on to good plots?
I haven't talked about Connor yet.
Go ahead, Lance.
This coming right after you said you try to make sure. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
We've all been kind of wait for the last few minutes. So go ahead.
Actually, of the three, I seem to remember like Connor's points and point of view and talking points stuck with me more so than any of the other ones. And again, I mean, this is I think in general they were all on relatively even playing fields, but I think Connor was the most memorable for me. It might be because he was of the dissenting opinion. I felt more of a passion from him than from the other two. Not that they were lacking in passion. I just felt, that Connor had a lot more to say. And while some of it wasn't as articulated as well, and quite honestly, I didn't necessarily agree with a lot of it, they were all points I thought were interesting. There was I can't remember the one I was thinking of now, so that kind of kills my point. I like that he sort of came at more from a documentary standpoint rather than necessarily the content. I didn't agree with the fact that he thought that this sort of off the cuff getting the sort of outtakes on film. He was against that, which is kind of odd considering their own format choice for this video. But they were all points that I thought resonated pretty well, and like you say, in terms of an MC, whether or not they chose one, putting it on a set up that expectation, I do sort of feel that in a way by default having a dissenting opinion sort of makes your opinion stand out more just on the basis of that. But I do think he managed to back it up pretty well.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and move on to good plot, and I'm gonna start with Manos this time. Manos, because Manos, of course, is good plot's staunchest supporter, or has been anyway. Manos, how did you feel about good plot's performance in this, and what he brought to the table?
I thought it was fairly strong. I think he had probably the biggest challenge out of this group, because he does his reviews in character. He does all his videos in character. So now this was just a conversation. So he actually had the choice. I'm sure he kind of kicked it around before they actually did this. That now, am I going to just take the eye patch off and just be Steven for the discussion and just discuss the movie as is, or am I going to do this in character? And it's actually. It's funny because it reminded me of Stephen Colbert when he would do interviews as his host character, and he would have to conduct interviews with that character, and he wisely knew when to pull it in and when to let it go, and I feel like Mr. Goodplot throughout the conversation was able to do that. He kept, I think he stayed in character, if I'm not mistaken, like the whole video. I mean, with slight degrees of the accent. Sometimes it would peter down, and then you'd hear it a little bit thicker again. I think he was able to keep the conversation going. Frankly, on his part, and I thought he was very successful at it.
Manos, I'm going to disagree with you slightly and say that I doubt it ever entered into Goodplot's mind to not do this in character.
I'm only speculating. He may have been.
It would have been such a weird choice. He does his interviews in character. I've never seen him not in character, and furthermore, it would have been quite the risk because I think even off the cuff, and I'm saying this because I've seen him now do a lot of off the cuff even in that character. Again, he does his interviews that way, and I don't know if you've watched him, but he hides behind it really well. I mean, it's a mask he wears, and I think it's really helpful for him. I think he looked the most prepared and confident through this, in my opinion, partly just because he could kind of hide behind that mask.
You know what I've noticed? I don't see people often interview in character. Often on the Daily Show and Colbert Report, and occasionally other shows. I think it's interesting, actually, when I see people in character interview, because it kind of, like performing in, any kind of performance in character, it gives that person a chance to just forget about themselves and really dig into whatever point, they're trying to make. Either an ironic point where, the character is completely off base, or the opposite. And I think he really shined at this opportunity.
I just think he's more comfortable with it.
It does, and it does lend
a lot less comfortable had he not gone that way.
Yeah, it did. He was the least awkward.
And it would have been having this person there. We don't know this guy out of character. We've never seen him do it. Yeah. It would have been a really bad idea.
Yeah, it would have been.
It would have been a really bad idea.
I agree. He obviously was the most comfortable, and that's for something that could have been a disadvantage. I think was a huge advantage for him.
If he and we've said that all year, if he makes it into the finals, in the top two, he's going to be bringing. He's going to be trying to get a six issue because we make comics here at Geekvolution. He's going to try to make a 6-episode miniseries on Geekvolution. He's going to want to do that in character, and it would be so weird if the penultimate challenge he said, "Yeah, let's take the eye patch off." Bad idea.
Yeah. I think that probably would have been a bad decision. I'm glad he went the way he did. But I'm sure, I don't know. It's possible he may have considered since we're doing a live chat, we're gonna be just chilling out talking. I wouldn't be surprised if it came across his mind. But I'm glad. I agree with you. I'm glad he stayed in character.
Well, when you say it's a risk, to your point, it is in the sense of I wonder if he's ever talked to anyone in person in that accent. You got to think about that. He's in a live show with other people, and suddenly he's doing that thing. Do you get kind of insecure and self-conscious about it? You're like, I'm speaking in a stupid accent right now to these people I don't know. I mean, it was a risk, and it wasn't a risk all at the same time.
I gotta tell you, I have performed. I used to act, and I used to perform as in character, and I would perform as myself. And I was always more comfortable in character all the time.
Yeah, me too.
As yourself, you're totally naked. As a character, you have a bit of armor, and you can use it wisely or unwisely, and it's a very effective tool, I think.
Let's hear from Lance.
Well, I agree on all those things. Although I found it interesting. I mean, while you say that he stayed in character, actually, in some ways, I feel that this was the closest we've seen him not in character. And it was more. It seemed more like him with just a sort of a glaze of Mr. Goodplot, put sort of a veneer. And I think I still think that was definitely the smartest choice. I think because had he been fully in plot villainous, mode robot in the corner of the frame the whole time, then it probably would have been dominating in a very negative way. So I think he was very brave and smart to keep the character up, but to dial it back to something that could actually fit the format of this kind of discussion. Otherwise, we could have taken him even remotely seriously. And yet he still managed to work in a few points that were appropriate for him to bring the character back in full force, and knew exactly when those points were, and they were hilarious. So I was really impressed with the way he did that. That said, though, I do feel, especially towards the second half, that it did seem to become much more the Matt and Connor show, which is occasional tidbits of input from Mr. Goodplot, and that really weakened him for me, because by the end I'd almost forgotten he was there until he turned up the character back all the way up and had his little shtick, and then went, oh yeah, that's right, he's still there. He didn't completely get lost in the shuffle, but I think that he did kind of get a little bit overshadowed by the other two.
Aaron, what do you think about that? Is Lance right?
Yeah. Actually, I was going to make the same point. Of the three, he had the most difficulty, in my opinion, interjecting. I felt like he played the background more than the other two. So I would agree with what Lance says about that. I would also agree that the character choice was probably his biggest choice of this round, right? Like, that's going to have the biggest impact of, kind of our view. I disagree a little bit with what you said about dropping the character being an awful choice. It's a very risky choice, but risk can also come with huge reward. Imagine if he drops the character and all of a sudden he's just as good as, just Steven talking. You know what I mean? Like, we have this moment where we go, oh, wow, look what's underneath. So there is that kind of risk reward kind of thing. Having said that, I do think it was probably the wise choice, because unless he has other, practice doing that, I think the risk is really high. And as for that, I also think the character was a little muted. Again, probably a wise choice, but it makes for some difficulty on his part to fully embrace kind of the reality of what he's doing. And I think that might be part of the reason he was lost in the background at a few moments. I also felt like he had the most tendency of the three of them to give way to echoing. So a lot of times when you're doing a show, you find yourself just echoing what other people say, and he did that a lot. There were several times throughout where I found that, and that's fine if you want to like expand, kind of give another example or those kind of things. But a lot of times he would echo the very thing that Matt had said before him or something like that. That happened like 2 or 3 times during the half hour. So I did notice that as well. I also thought he was, again, the funniest of the three. I mean, he was, he found a way to interject humor at points. It wasn't throughout the entire thing, but it was definitely there.
I'm gonna say a couple things to that real quick and then let Alex talk. Aaron, I did not notice that it happened that often. If he was echoing things, more often what I was seeing him do, and I was impressed with this, was either interjecting and bringing good evidence to the contrary, especially with a lot of Connor's points, where Connor would make a point and he would say, well, no, actually, there's this one place where people did talk about that, and here's what they said. I thought he was the most specific of the three in a lot of places, bringing in details and examples of things. Every time he had a point, he had an example to back it up. I thought that Connor was more generalized until he got more comfortable. And toward the end, Connor's bringing in all kinds of stuff, but at the beginning, it was a lot more general. And again, I think part of that was a format thing. I think part of that was like, okay, are we going to be generalized and then get specific? How exactly are we doing this? And there was just we're not sure right now. But with good plot, I thought that he was just bringing a lot of specifics to the table. And also, when you mentioned his tendency to interject humor, let me also say, much needed humor. Like he made it entertaining in a way that it wouldn't have been otherwise. It was really dry without him, and in places where we didn't get a lot of him, and he loosened the other guys up. I actually kind of wish that he had dominate's not the right word. We've been throwing that around a lot tonight. I kind of wish that he had been more present even at the beginning in order to help loosen those guys up, because that's an ability he has. He has an ability to really bring people's personalities out. I also completely disagree with you guys about his fading into the background at the end, because I thought it was proportionate. I thought that at the beginning it was much more of the Matt and Good Plot show, and that toward the end Connor was bringing up stuff that Good Plot didn't have as much to say about, and he had already kind of said a lot of what he had to say. So if he did recede in the background, it was a good time to do it. I didn't have a problem with that at all, nor did I notice it.
Yeah. A lot of that stuff you said I agree with. The humor, especially, that it was needed. It's probably one of those things where, you know, you hear a noise and then you can't get that noise out of your head. So I probably noticed early on him doing that, and then every time it happened, it probably was so minor that nobody else would notice it. But because I had that in the back of my head, I probably noticed it, you know, the 2 or 3 times that he did it. And I will say, even at that, it's not a huge point. You know, like, it's not something, I think, at the end of the day that's going to, you know, make or break kind of what he did in this video. But I definitely did notice it, but maybe I was just more attuned.
Yeah. Well, I just thought it was important to note that if he is doing that, it's not all he's doing. It's not like whenever he has something to say, he's just acting somebody else. Like, he doesn't, like, I thought he was prepared. You know, like, I thought he knew what he wanted to say.
I totally agree with that point. Yep.
Yeah. Let's hear from Alex.
I'll definitely jump off of that and agree with you guys that I think he was the most prepared. I did love the robot gag at the end. I thought that was really, really funny. And I liked how he was able to kind of, because I do sort of agree with the general sense that I'm getting here from you guys, that he did dial down the character a little bit, and I think that was appropriate in a lot of places. But definitely, I'll sort of agree with you too, Cap, that him fading into the background, I think, was in proportion to the other guys fading into the background, and I think everybody did get more or less the same amount of time. But yeah, I think he really did bring some much needed levity to this, for sure. And I do like as well how he did always bring up specific points, and I think maybe that comes from just him being a nerd, because that's sort of, you know, what we do is obsess over minutia. And I think that's, when you're having a discussion like this, in particular when people are in disagreement about things, the facts of what was in the actual thing that you watched are important. So I liked that he was able to push back on some of the things that Connor said by using specific examples.
I mean, I thought he had one of the more poignant points when he said that if it's going to be called showrunners and you're going to have a couple of people in there that are running sitcoms, why aren't we seeing other stuff? Why there needs to be some kind of an explanation as to why there's not more of, you know, bigger variety of shows. And that was the thing I didn't think of watching.
Yeah, and I mean, he defended that point really well, because he talked about how they did cover web shows, and he's like, well, they're covering 2 different types of things. Why not include the other ones as well? Like, if you're going to do showrunners and try and bring this thing, like, focus on, you know, just live action TV that's broadcast on the network.
Real quick before we move on, there was another thing I meant to mention to Aaron, which is, Aaron, I think maybe one of the reasons, and I'm not saying it didn't happen, I think you're saying you might have noticed stuff that wasn't there as prominent. I think I missed it, and when you're talking about, you know, his echoing people, that has been something you've focused on real hard in his other reviews, his tendency to overly summarize and not have enough critical stuff there. So you got a radar for that now, because he tends to do that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I also wanted to say, I think we've all mentioned that it was wise to dial back the character. Now I'm second guessing that. You know, what would it have looked like if he'd have just left it dialed all the way up? I think that might have been really fun. I'm just thinking of that now, like.
And would it have forced the other guys to sort of up their game too, and would have gotten something a little bit more exciting out of it? And
was it more dialed back because they?
Yeah.
You know, because there's kind of a consensus of mood that happens in a lot of reviews, right? Like when you got multiple people, there's like a coalescing thing where, like, if you know, you're in a review with 4 other people and they're all really lethargic, it's really hard to be, hello everyone! You know, it's real tough to be like that when everybody else is like, well, Manos right now.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, wait, you got one guy in bed, and you're just like, gonna make fun of me about that? I protest.
My biggest criticism of this entire thing as a PC is lighten up a little bit. And again, that's a tough thing to do when you just jump straight into it, and of course you're taking it seriously because it's a contest. You've got to do that. But yeah, that's Aaron. You make an excellent point, and I also could have seen us coming up here tonight and being like, "Oh my God, good plot. You really needed to back off." You know what I mean? Like, could have gone either way.
Yeah.
It could have been. I think if he had dialed it all the way to 11, I think it would have been risky to be that annoyingly dominant.
But as Aaron says, it might have been the right risk, but only if the other guys up their games with it. In fact, that might have, if you're really game playing and you're being a jerk face, that would have been possibly the way to get him eliminated this round, is where he's like, come on everybody! Because the thing is, if he upped the energy and they went with him, then we'd be praising him for it. But if he upped that energy and they were like, the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, it would have been completely it would have been completely disproportionate.
No, I think to a degree that was not a calculated choice. I think that it was subconscious.
Yeah.
Potential. Yeah. Well, let's not belabor that. Or go ahead, Lance.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, since that's what we do now.
But the way he's lit, it almost looks like he's lying in a casket.
I'm lying in a 1920s silent film.
Oh, like everybody's doing it now.
Yeah, everybody's comfortable except Alex.
Everybody's got it. Actually, this isn't comfortable at all. I don't have anything to lay back on, really. It's just, this is a pillow on my head.
This is nice.
Okay, well, thanks for watching, folks. We're professionals. Let's talk about that Matt kid. Aaron, why don't you start us off there?
All right. Let me get rid of my sleeping paraphernalia. Matt Kidd. So here's some of my notes. I think he had, of the three, in my opinion, the best conversational interaction. I felt like he was, of the three, the most able to make his points in a clear, concise, and conversational way. And I think that's not surprising considering what we've seen from him and what he does. I also felt like he had a really good handle on the material, and when Connor specifically at the beginning was talking about not liking it, was able to very quickly and succinctly dig into that and say why he did like it and defend well. And I also noticed what I think you brought up earlier, Cap, which is he took the reins when the reins needed taking. You know, when there were moments in this that could have gotten awkward or died down even more, he did a great job at kind of stepping up and grabbing those reins. I felt like that Matt kid, did a really good job.
Alex.
Can I guess maybe say first, you guys have somewhat swayed me on that, I guess. I guess part of it is I just did come to this from the perspective of, okay, this is on Connor's channel, so maybe, I did just kind of focus more on that and pay attention to that more when he did step up and take the lead. I'm glad Matt did take the reins when he did, and part of me wonders if this had been hosted on his channel, since he does have this really natural, affable, just conversational kind of personality that I think fits really well. And I think maybe if he had been the person whose channel it was on, we might have gotten something that was a little bit more both structured and kind of comfortable. I will say I kind of perhaps come away from this thinking the other two, their points were more distinct, or like I remember them more than what Matt had to say. Like I'm just kind of struggling to remember specific points that he made, even though when he made them they made sense and I kind of saw where he was coming from. How did you guys feel about that?
Well, and I'm having the same problem, and I don't know why. Because I would say that just as far as his on-screen persona and tone and everything, that he seemed the most professional. Was it because, Alex, he was more like he didn't bring up a lot of stuff, it was just reacting more to things? Was it that, or am I wrong? That
might have been it. I mean, I think he did bring up points that were his own. It's just, again,
well,
yeah.
Well, he had to have if he's taken the reins and the other two aren't going anywhere.
I think it was more a case of him shifting the discussion onto another topic.
Right. He asked a lot of questions, which I was impressed with.
Mm-hmm.
Where he'd say, where he'd show interest in the other two as contributors. What did you guys think of this? And sometimes it was even just implied in his question how he felt about it.
Yeah, so that was really good, and I think that's a really important skill for doing this kind of a thing is to be able to phrase things in such a way that they are open-ended, so it's not just, here's my point, what do you have to say?
Well, there's Alex's point. What do you guys have to say?
He also had the most, what I felt was the most real moment of the entire 30 minutes when he said, can we please not talk about Arrow?
Yes.
That was wonderful. And I mean, there was right then there was a lot of, okay, let's stay on topic and stuff, but we needed those kinds of diversions. I don't mean for minutes at a time, but I wish something like that had happened earlier, because it just,
I think was what loosened them up towards the end.
Yeah, and I don't know what it is, but that can focus you. That kind of thing. Okay, we're personable, and we're, it's almost like, it's like the difference between having an out-of-body experience and being in a collective consciousness. You can be in a group like this and feel like you're talking at air, and you're talking now, and then you wait for somebody else to talk because that has to happen, but there's not really any interaction that's going on. And I don't know, sometimes funny things happening and people laughing tends to make you more connected and turn into a unit. I don't know why, but it works that way.
Although, since you mentioned that, it just reminded me of when that happened. It was Good Plot of all people who was the one going, guys, let's get back on topic here. Let's not fool around anymore. I just thinking about that now. That kind of I found that kind of amusing.
Supervillains do need to have plans. So.
Yeah, that's true. He's very methodical.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're usually in charge, so, just comes naturally.
Manos, what did you think of Mad Kid's performance?
I kind of was looking forward most to Mad Kid's performance. I had the most confidence in him doing well in this challenge. I figured his natural style, he does some work, he edits very well in his videos, but to be honest, he has such a kind of nice, personable style. He could do those videos, without that. He could just do them directly to the camera. And as I expected, I think he did very well. We may not remember him specifically. You may have mentioned this, but we may not remember specific points he brought up, because I think he did a lot of what you said, directing the conversation and doing a lot of posting. Maybe this because he was supposed to, so he was still in that mindset. But he seemed really at ease. He seemed very good. It seemed very cool.
Yeah, and the only times I thought he seemed a little bit nervous, and if he was, he hit it okay, was just when other things made things a little bit awkward for him, where I can tell somebody else is feeling kind of weird, and so I'm trying to make that, trying to help be the glue that holds it together. I felt like there was some of that. I don't want to overblow that point, but I think there was a little bit of that going on. Lance?
Well, first I want to say, since this has actually become a point of conversation during the course of tonight's events, the reason I sit at my bed during these deliberations is not for reason of personal comfort, because believe me, this laptop on my lap is freaking hot.
Yeah,
but it's because I have roommates, and my desk is in a common area of the apartment, and this is the only time I have any privacy to do these. Just wanted to throw that out there.
It was either that or the toilet. Good choice.
Exactly. But there's this big fan in the bathroom that I can't turn off, so that would just be noisy. But as for that Mad Kid, because that's what I'm here to talk about, I enjoyed listening to him immensely. I do feel like I had the same sort of issue with Alex, where I liked his presence and the fact that he was able to effectively become a sort of MC for this. But I come away with not really remembering that any specifics. And I don't know if that's me or if that's on him. And I'm kind of glad last on this, because I was waiting to see if somebody would jump in the meantime with this. Oh, he said, made this. Like, oh yeah, I remember that now. But it comes down, and I'm still trying to figure this out in my head at this point. Whether the fact that he did do such an effective and well presented way of sort of taking charge of this conversation, even though it wasn't on his channel, if that's enough to carry him, it definitely lent itself to a very good performance. I mean, I can't use the word performance in this because this is not acting, but just a very good presentation for this evening. Or whenever, the other evening. I'm losing my mind here. I'm getting, I'm tired. Hi. Am I still awake? Whoa. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. No, but I do agree that he had a sort of felt much more effortless than the other two. Even taking into account the fact that Mr. Goodplot was juggling both his character and his real life points. I do think, I don't know if you guys agree or disagree. I do think he ended up having, for a very small portion, I think he had the worst technical glitches. There was this really strong echo in his mic at one point that I had a hard time making out what he was saying at all. Thankfully, it was very brief, but it did sort of make me wonder if I was missing anything important during that point. And I guess he had the sort of barest bound. I do agree, going back to Connor, that he had the best sort of visual for his side of the conversation. I mean, granted, there's not much you can do with what looks like a dorm room, but it is what it is. And I think he did a great job overall.
Put a Led Zeppelin poster behind.
And I certainly didn't want to concentrate really on the technical side of this one at all. I mean, we could have, these guys could have done it just as audio and put a picture up. I told them they could do that. So I don't want to, I want to focus more on content than anything. To respond.
I thought I mentioned it since somebody else had. But...
Yeah.
But I mean,
well, just to respond to something you said, in a live call like that, just if people aren't aware, if you are echoing, it's probably not you. It's probably somebody's speakers.
Yeah,
so that's not on you. That's probably somebody else.
True. That is true.
When that's happened to me, it's almost always the speakers are up too loud and they need to turn them down.
Because that actually happened to me when I was doing that challenge too, if I recall.
That would also be a way to sabotage someone in this challenge. Just turn your speakers up really loud and you can only hear me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't hold it against him too much because we do these every single time, and there's not a time where I'm not laggy or Manos doesn't cut out or some technical glitch happens. So I'm obviously going to cut quite a bit of leeway, to the contestants.
It would be rather hypocritical to go, man, these guys technical. It's really bad. Yeah, that would be a little.
Every time somebody does that, it's prophetic, and then everything goes down.
Yeah.
No, with Mad Kid, as far as our inability to remember points, for me, part of it I think is just I should have taken more notes on this one, honestly. But also with Matt, he made a lot of points I agreed with. I've seen this, and he said a lot of things that I would have said, and so I think part of the reason that I'm not remembering exactly things he said is just because he was kind of echoing what I would have said, and so it was just kind of like listening to yourself, and other people would bring up things I hadn't heard of before, and he brought up a lot of things that I probably would have brought up, but he also I think ties or comes close to tying with Good Plot for most amount of specific examples to back up things he said. I think he did a really good job of taking up for the movie when supporting why he liked it over things Connor was saying, where he rebutted a lot of Connor's points really well, and I think Matt had a lot to do with why Connor in places I thought seemed a little bit insecure, where he would bring really good evidence to the table to say, well, actually they did talk about these there was stuff about I'm trying to remember specifically what it was. There was toward like the middle of the discussion, they were talking about Connor was talking about how there wasn't they kind of just repeated over and over again the job is hard, and it's the best thing ever. But then he was, and they all agreed with that. But then again, Matt would bring up a thing and be like, well, here's where it got a little bit more complex than that. And then there was another bit where Connor was talking about how he made it sound like everybody was complaining about studio heads. And then I think it was Matt who was talking about, yeah, but then here was the really interesting dissenting argument. So it wasn't like the movie preaching about a thing. It was the movie bringing all the points to the table. But the problem was this was just a particular topic where almost everybody was in agreement on almost everything, and that becomes a difficulty in documentary filmmaking. I will say that overall I liked the movie less after I listened to them. There was a lot of good criticism that I hadn't thought of.
I'm starting to think of some things
that... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Lance.
Sorry. I like that point that you brought up, Cap, about the potential for Matt's argument not being as memorable because you agree with it, because I do think that was part of the reason why I found Connor to be so memorable, because there were so many things I disagreed with, but I was like, I don't like it, but hey, good job. So yeah. I do think that you probably have a valid point there, where it is one of the things that that you disagree with, that sort of stick in your head more because you sort of want to have a rebuttal for it, whereas the ones that that are the same path as you just end up sort of shrugging your shoulders and moving on. So that's fair. I think that's pretty fair.
What is Alex?
Well, I was just gonna say I'm remembering now one distinct thing that Matt did bring up, and he brought up the issue of you ask anybody who's sort of knowledgeable about this field, like we are in this new golden age of television, and he talks about that. And one of the things he brought up is, one of the technical things that I think Connor brought up. He said, if I did that in one of my classes at school, I would have got docked for that. And it really made me wish towards the end that he would have brought more of that perspective to this, because this is like what he's studying. And I think that if he brought that up at the beginning, that would have lended anything that he had to say after that a lot more weight, because he is sort of a little bit of an authority on this.
You're right. It's that Iron Man 2 moment. Why didn't we lead with that? You're right. I mean, he had that specific point where, again, rebutting Connor. And I'm not saying that he was great because he disagreed with Connor on things. I'm just saying that the argument was good. Connor had that point, and he's right. I think this is a place where I did agree with him about how there were too many places in that movie where you would hear they pull the curtain back and you'd hear what the interviewer was saying. It was kind of inappropriate and just not a good place for it. And I mean, Matt had a good argument for why that sometimes needed to be there, and he had that example about a place where somebody broke down, and it was smart to have that. And I don't know, like he seemed to always have he seemed to be really, really sharp and always had something to respond with.
Mm-hmm.
One other thing I wanted to mention that I've forgotten was I thought of the three of them, Matt's final grade, ironic in that he doesn't like to give grades, but he gave one anyway, was more indicative of what he had said during the 30 minutes than the other two. Good Plot gave it a 9.5 and did not rave about this really, and had some problems with it, and so I was having trouble justifying why he loved it that much when I didn't really see that during the half hour. And Connor, in the reverse, gave it like a 4 something, but kind of backtracked on a lot of the negative things he had said. So it just kind of felt like, of the three of them, Matt landed in a more consistent place, I guess.
And yet, I still feel like Matt's rating would have been higher had he not talked to Connor. Like,
for sure.
I think Connor did swam a little bit, and I think that in a conversation, just like when we do this, it's interesting how similar these things are. Just like when we do Deliberations, I have my thoughts and ideas, but you guys might think of things I didn't think of, and it's not like backtracking or being wishy-washy to change your mind, like people are saying things you wouldn't have thought of. So had I been Good Plot, as funny as it was, I wouldn't have written my rating down yet.
I wonder if that was it. I wonder if he would have changed it if he hadn't had it written down, because unless he did something, I didn't really hear him raving about,
the closest I think he kind of got to it was when he really did, I think, break character and sort of say, like, I really like this because this sort of reveals the behind the scenes of something that I'm interested in pursuing as a career. So
Yeah.
I think that's maybe why he liked it as much as he did. But I agree, Aaron. You know, him having to prep that beforehand, you know, put him in a situation where his score might necessarily have reflected what he actually thought after having that discussion.
You know, I bet you're 100% right, Logan, on that point, because, you know, in this show, I'm sure you guys have done this too, you've written down who your top banana and your vote off is going to be. And then after discussion, when maybe one of the other judges brings something up that maybe you hadn't considered, you know I have, like, changed my vote midway through a show. And that's probably what happened with him. But he still didn't, you know, rewrite he didn't tweak the rating.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that's the exercise, right? That's the point of doing a discussion / review, as opposed to just a review where you say some things and I say some things, and then maybe we argue about it later, but we never really come to a consensus. You know, it's because you know, getting other people's perspectives can change your mind, and that's healthy, and that's you know, critical thinking. It's you know that's important. So yeah, I wouldn't have written my rating down. But yeah, Manos, I mean, like, you know, if we were just gonna like stick to our guns after we pick top banana and vote off, then there's no point in doing this. Like, we might as well.
Yes, that's right.
We might as well just make a video where each of us separately says some things, and it would be shorter and it would be more digestible. But it would be
This would be the easiest show ever.
you know, so there's a reason that you deliberate like that about stuff. Okay, well, anything else you guys wanted to say about about this overall, or anybody specifically that we didn't get to talk about? We talked much longer about this than I thought we would. And if not, we'll go ahead and move on to top banana. But I want to give you guys the floor. Okay, let's go ahead and see. We need a good bot to come in here now and tell a joke. Now we're going to go ahead and go on to top banana then, and let's hear first from Lance. Lance, who do you think had the best performance overall this round?
I mean, it's hard every week, but especially because I do feel this put them on relatively even footing. And nobody, as you know, as been for the course for the past several challenges, there you have anybody really, you know, below level of anybody else. And so I was going back and forth on them for a bit, and I'm probably going to be a bit against the pack here. But I'm going to vote for Connor Nielsen, just because I felt much more connection to what he was saying. Regardless of whether I agreed with it, I felt he delivered it in a way that really stuck and resonated with me.
Well, I can't say that's not the most objective thing I've heard in a long time. I agree with nothing he said, and it resonated with me. I don't mean. See, jokes like that are funnier when you engage in hyperbole. Alex.
I'm gonna have to give it to Good Plot. I think, you know, he did make the right choice to stay in character. I think, you know, on the whole, he pulled it off well, and, you know, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. So, kudos.
The real Manos.
I'm going to agree with Alex. I think he had a bit of a challenge, maybe a tighter challenge than the others this week. And I think he pulled it off very successfully. Matt Kidd was also very great. I think Good Plot.
Manos, don't be offended when I tell you this, but I already wrote that down before you told it. How dare you! I'm just kidding. Aaron Dicer!
It's Matt Kidd, then.
No,
Suck it, Logan. It's Matt Kidd. That's my vote.
Well, yeah, without the first part of that sentence, I will agree. It is that Matt Kidd for me. I thought he was
I don't know what that first part of that sentence was, but was it appropriate for the channel?
It depends on what the first letter of the first word was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he said. Did you swear at me?
I did not.
Oh, okay. No, I just didn't even hear it.
Then he said, "Suck it." That's what.
Oh, is that what he said? Well, that will not be the first time Manos has told me to do that.
Yeah, I've said that to Steve. I think I said that to Dan like a couple of weeks ago on the show.
What, like he was Saturday Night Live Alex Trebek? I am I'm going to make this not turn into a tie and give it also to Good Plot. I mean, neck and neck with Matt Kid, most certainly. But the and I don't mean that any time I've given Good Plot a lot of praise. I don't know if I've ever given Good Plot top banana. I forget. But I don't mean to say that any time I've done that, if I have given him top banana, it's just because he's funny. It's not like that. However, the entertainment thing in this round really put it over the top for me because it had to be there. This would have been a lot drier. And I mean, interesting certainly, but he livened him up. I mean, I feel like when you get to the end, some of the things that I liked about Matt and Connor by the end, I'm not sure would have been there were it not for Good Plot. I think he elevated the whole thing, and I think that makes him, in some ways, the MVP this round. I don't know that he was the most insightful, but he and Matt, for me, I think share that. But I don't know. The levity was necessary.
Levity was very important. It's generally important with his work, but specifically in this challenge, because that's something I try to interject in our videos. I mean, I may not be the most articulate or smartest or talented, but I can be funny during our conversations. And
yeah,
and I've noticed
it's hilarious. We
yeah.
we really appreciate it.
And I've noticed we're not the only one I watch. I've watched other people do live broadcasts. Some regularly, and some I'll just check out. And yeah, if they're just a couple of guys, just like Arrow was pretty good. Yeah, I think so. That one thing was good. Yeah, it's boring. It's painful to watch.
Yeah, you've got to be a personality, and I'm not saying that Connor and Matt aren't, but
no, they were good.
Yeah. Okay, well, Good Plot's got top banana again this week, and with 3 votes, I'm going to assume that he can't be voted off this time. Although, somebody who did not. Somebody could change their mind. I've never seen anybody give a top banana and a vote off to the same person. That would be strange, and I would question it. However, he's looking safe right now to me, which is remarkable. Let's go ahead and go on now to the vote off, and we got to do it. We got to say goodbye to somebody and get to the final round, the last 2, and it is just incredible to finally be here. And I am so stoked for the finale. Let's go ahead and begin with the real Manos. Manos, who of these 3? Who are you going to vote off?
I'm going to, unfortunately, go with Connor.
Okay, that's 1 vote for Connor. I guess I'll go second and also say Connor. I hate that. I do think that he had the toughest time this round. He is so written and prepared. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't done a lot of off the cuff stuff. And you know what's so funny about Matt? He hates it, but he's good at it. That drives me crazy. Every time he's done one like that in his interview, he's like, "I hate this. I don't ever want to do this again." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you're really good at it." And I think Connor could get great at it. And I just wish that they had talked for an hour beforehand. This would be such a harder choice for me if I thought they had done that, because I think everybody would have been more relaxed.
And would have been for me, impossible.
Yeah, with Connor, it's just a matter of he was the least relaxed of the 3 to me. Aaron.
I have to say, it's not as clear to me as it seems to be to everybody else. For me, it is the narrowest of margins. Even from, I said that Matt Kidd, my top banana, from him to who I picked to vote off was a narrow margin. I mean, they all 3 flowed in this thing in very similar ways. Having said that, I unfortunately will cast, I guess, the coffin's nail by saying Connor.
Oh, man. Okay.
And it stinks. He's so brilliant. I've said this many times during his stuff.
Oh, yeah.
He's a brilliant thinker, and I love how creative he is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does.
Yeah, well, I mean, he got all the way to the top 3, and he could have been any of these guys. And I made it much harder on all 3 of them by making this the second to last challenge. I knew that when I did it. Lance and Alex, what would you guys have said?
You go ahead first, Lance.
Thank you. I totally agree with what Aaron said. It is such a narrow margin because I feel each of them has strengths in different areas, and each of them had weaknesses in different areas, and it's just sort of all comes down to, what we feel being the tipping point in that. And so it's very difficult for me to make that. It matters. And so I asked to wage my guilt, because I've put it on top of the head many times, I believe, and because it doesn't make the slightest bit of difference, but I'm not going to put good plots. Because, like I said, he just sort of dropped out to me toward, in the last half of that, and I had a smaller impression of him, even though, even his peaks, seem to be somewhat higher than the other two. His valleys, I just kind of lost him in the shuffle sometimes.
Alex, what would your vote have been?
I'm gonna sort of have to agree with Connor, although I definitely had the same thing, Aaron, of, I went into this actually thinking maybe Matt would be my vote off. And I know you would disagree with that, because you gave him top banana. I think we've discussed this before as far as, like, factors that come into making the decision and, like, how you weigh things. And it's something I don't think anyone has brought up. I think it's definitely relevant at this point in the contest where, they've really gone through the ringer by this point. It's just kind of, we're at the end now. I sort of factor into, and this isn't, I don't weigh this as heavily as anything else, but that's, who do I think could benefit from the contest more going forward, and who do I think would have the easiest time, if they were to go now. And I think we've kind of had this thing with Matt all the way through where he produces really solid stuff. And, if we're going into a finale and we want it to be exciting, Connor is someone who brings something new and innovative and unique pretty much every time. And just sort of from that perspective, I think it would have been far more interesting to kind of see good plot and Connor in the finale. Not that Matt doesn't deserve to be there by any means. It's just I almost feel like at this point, like, Matt has he has a style, he has a direction. I'm just sort of ready to see him let loose and do what he's going to do with this channel.
Yeah, that's a really insightful point, Alex. And yet, I do feel like he's one of the contestants that I've seen change the most over the competition.
In what respects?
He's gotten so much more comfortable on camera. You look at his day one video versus now, and it's night and day. I think that in some ways, and this is so weird to say because he's so polished, but I think in some ways he's the most improved through the competition for me. I'm not saying that Good Plot hasn't benefited from being here, but I think he's putting out the same kind of work he was at the beginning, and we just have liked it a lot. He's listening to us, and he's making some some adjustments here and there, but Matt's been experimenting. So I mean, now Connor's been experimenting more. But I think Matt had a really good sense at the beginning of what he thought his style was going to be, and it is still more or less that. But he's like more present and more sharp and ready to and funnier. And I mean, I've seen that just kind of.
Ooh, Eddie,
Yes, I talk with my hands. Deal with it.
I just froze there
No,
for
you
a while.
just froze.
I wanted you so bad to freeze.
my nails aren't dry.
Happens to me all the time, man.
Gerhard? We had Joss Whedon in the movie they talked about today.
I would agree with what you said, though, that his camera presence has definitely improved. He has gotten a lot more comfortable. And yeah, you're right, he has experimented in this, and it's worked for him when he's done it. I sort of feel like I'm ready to see that Matt Kid channel, and I want to see him do his thing and talk about what he wants to talk about.
Yeah, well, fair enough. And then with Connor, I feel like we have mostly an experimenter. We've got a guy who has a lot of different styles, and he hasn't really landed on one. That's not why I voted him off by any stretch of the imagination. I like to a degree I like that about him, and I would have really liked to have seen what a regular formatted 6-episode series from him would have looked like on the channel. But I've talked to him separately, and I know that he's actually going to do a series of his own that's a regular structured thing on his channel, and I'm kind of excited about that. He probably wouldn't want me to give away what it is, but he's got a really cool idea, and I'm kind of stoked about it. But anyway, Connor's Connor absolutely deserved to be in the top 3. I'm sad that he's not going on, and he's going to have no trouble moving forward. I think he'll be an audience. And now that he's voted off, I don't mind saying that he and I have been talking, and he's going to be. I'm going to bring him on as a co-host for some stuff. We've been chatting a little bit, and I'm already we're already talking about doing some things together. So you'll see more. You'll see more of Connor, no problem. Well, why don't we go ahead and talk about the final challenge, shall we? This is super exciting. Finally, getting into round 8, and I feel like the series is the last few years has been, or the last couple years, it's been around 8. It's been an 8-round thing. But Lance, when you did it, wasn't it just 7?
Well, yeah, yes, it was.
Yeah,
it was.
That last round was just 7. I just now thought of that. Anyway, so round 8, we're gonna be. This might seem like the obvious way to go, but I thought it was the most appropriate thing to do. What we're gonna ask the last 2 contestants to do is to create the series pilot for the show they would make if they won for the challenge. That's what they'll be doing. So basically, what we've done now is for Good Plot and Matt Kidd, we have greenlit the production of a pilot, but we will only choose one between them. So it's like we are channel, or it's like we are executives for a cable network, and they're going to bring. We've got a slot open, and only one can win it, and these 2 are going to pitch us ideas through a series pilot. That's what we're going to do now.
Now this fantasy.
For whichever one of them makes it in, wins the whole contest, we are, of course, going to let them still have the full 6 episodes. So this will be a pilot for what will, I guess, ultimately be a 7-episode series. And I won't give whoever ends up winning. I won't give them the time limit guideline that they're going to have for this one, but the time limit is for this one is 20 minutes, so it gives them plenty to work with. That's a lot of time. Well, depending on what you're doing, that's a lot of time. I don't know if I can. I can't hardly make a superhero rewind anymore in 20 minutes, but that's a lot of time depending on what you're doing. Anyway, so basically, imagine that what I want you to do is I want you to make the show that I, as a network exec, want so badly I would pay you to get it. And ultimately, you're going to win $500, so you're going to get paid to get it, basically, is the idea, which I think is really kind of fun. So what I want you to do is choose your topic area, come up with a regular format, and figure out what your style is going to be. This is going to be the formula you're going to use for your series for the entire 6 episodes. Remember that you're not just making a review this time, you're coming up with that formula. Stand out from the other myriad YouTube series by carving out your own niche, being engaging and entertaining, and build your brand based on everything you have learned throughout the competition. Certainly, looking at both Matt Kidd and Good Plot, they both kind of have a style, and they have a way they like to review already. It is okay to break out of that if you want to for this, because I know Matt Kidd. Both these guys, they have their own channels, and they're going to do things moving forward. So if you want to separate this from what you're doing on your channel, that's totally cool. Just remember that it could be a slight risk. It could be a really good risk, just because it's going to be impossible for us not to compare it to stuff that you have done in the past. But basically, we the judges, obviously we're gonna take the rest of the competition into consideration to a degree, but we're basically going to pick the best pilot. That's the idea. And as I said, it's a 20-minute time limit, and you're gonna and whoever wins gets 6 more episodes of it on our channel, and I hope very much to use that to help bolster your viewer base. Does anybody have any questions about this challenge? It's pretty loose, pretty open-ended. That's what I like to do with the last challenge. Kind of makes it harder.
Do you remember what they said originally, what they wanted to do for their shows?
Boy, I knew you were going to ask me that. I really don't. I'm sure Mad Kids
You should have prepared that.
I should have prepared. No, I forgot to ask that question. You're absolutely right.
If I'm remembering correctly, I'm not sure that Maddie had even totally decided yet, or if either of them had. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that they had picked the exact topics. So yeah, we'll see how they do. Well, anyway, thanks everybody for watching Who Reviews the Reviewers. We sure appreciate it. Very excited about the live finale. We'll make sure and publish a date when we have one. We don't know yet right now what exactly that's going to be, but it will be sure after this video is posted. It should be like a week. It'll be real close. To now, we're going to bring those guys on if we can find a time that we can all meet, and we're going to talk directly to them, and we're going to do that one live on a Google Hangout. And Aaron, I will make sure to be very prepared and organized.
You always are, dude.
Oh, thanks, pal. Well, everybody, thanks again for watching. We sure appreciate it, and we shall see you again very shortly. I was Captain Logan. This was Alex, Super Enthusiast.
Yeah.
Lance Fusion.
Bye-bye.
The Real Meadows.
Farewell.
And Aaron
I
Dicer.
only had time to drink half my water.
See you, folks.
Bye-bye.